Welcome to the Job Shop Show, where we talk with the owners, suppliers, partners, and customers of custom manufacturers. Listen and learn the secrets of top-performing job shops, the tools, techniques, and backgrounds that have made them successful, all in the quest of raising the bar for custom manufacturing. I'm your host, Jay Jacobs. This episode is sponsored by Paperless Parts, connecting buyers and suppliers of custom manufactured parts. The Paperless platform is a secure, ITAR-compliant, cloud-based manufacturing system for suppliers that reduces the amount of time spent on sales, estimating, quoting, administration, and order processing. It offers seamless integration with the accounting and ERP software tools that shops already use, such as QuickBooks, E2, and JobBoss. Paperless Parts was founded with a mission to make manufacturing more accessible by streamlining the quote-to-cash process. Spend less time quoting and more time selling.
This episode is sponsored by our friends at the NTMA, the National Tooling and Machining Association. The NTMA is an association of privately held, entrepreneurial-based, and family-owned businesses, representing nearly 1,200 small to mid-sized machine shops and tool and die shops across the country. They have approximately 30 very active regional chapters that host local events, run apprenticeship programs, and provide other services to their regional members. As an association of peers, the goal of the NTMA is to help members of the U.S. precision custom manufacturing industry achieve profitable growth and business success in a global economy through networking, workforce development and training, technology, best practices education, advocacy, programs, and services with industry partners. To learn how your company can get involved with the NTMA, including how to join, visit ntma.org.
Shazam! The Job Shop Show is on fire today. Your host, Jay Jacobs, with a very exciting guest, Roger Atkins. Roger is the president of the NTMA, which stands for National Tooling and Machining Association. Haven't heard of the NTMA? We will fill you in on how Roger and his team are supporting U.S. small and medium-sized custom part manufacturers in the quest to not only survive in today's tough times, but to actually thrive. There are well over 1,000 members, and combined annual revenue is over $35 billion. That is a lot of parts shipped from the members. And what I think is cool is that it's just not a national organization. There are 30 local chapters, which in normal times get the owners face-to-face to share best practices, talk with a peer about stuff that you can't always talk to others in your shop. And in general, you get to develop the bonds that allow trusted business to happen between shops. They become friendly competitors, and Roger will probably talk a little bit about that. And a little bit about Roger. Besides being annoyingly good-looking, what is special about Roger is that he's one of us. He started helping in a family shop when he was 10, and until he accepted the role of president of the NTMA early this year, he has spent almost his entire career in metalworking. At one shop, he was part of the management team that grew from low 8 figures revenue to over 9 figures in revenue during the time he was there. A guy who's gotten his hands dirty, worked in a variety of operational roles, and found his true love in sales and marketing. Welcome to the Job Shop Show, Roger.
Hey, good afternoon, Jay. Glad to be here.
So let's just start off with the basic. Who is the NTMA?
Hey, that's a great question. NTMA is an association of privately held, entrepreneurial-based, and family-owned businesses in the precision machining, custom part manufacturing industry. Like you said, we have about 1,200 members across the United States with 30 chapters. And so those of our members that aren't close to a chapter, they're at large members, and they get the same services that our chapter-based members get as well. But it's small to medium-sized businesses across the U.S. And as we're known, we're the backbone of U.S. manufacturing, and NTMA is truly small businesses who make up the backbone of U.S. manufacturing in the United States.
And the NTMA has been around for a long time. Do you know when it got started?
It's been around. We celebrated our 75th year 3 years ago, so we're around 78 years, Jay.
Yeah. So I know you had shared with me before the podcast, you got involved in 74, and we'll talk about that. But before we get into the nitty gritty of all the things that the NTMA is doing, which is quite a bit, let's just stop back, and I want to make sure that the listener understands that you are one of us and that you really bring credibility to the NTMA. So you are a parts guy, manufacturing guy. How did that start?
Well, Jay, I may not have had a choice. I was born into the industry. My dad had a small manufacturing shop, so I grew up with my dad owning a shop. We went in there as kids and worked on mini bikes and go-karts, from being kids to growing up. And my dad's philosophy was always, we did not have to go and run his business and take over his business, but he always felt that we owed him a couple of summers that we would learn the business and make sure we knew what he did in case we were interested. I was the youngest of three boys, and two of us went into the business, and one went more on went into the machining side of it. And as you say, I grew up in the shop from sales, from shipping and receiving to quality to scheduling to running the shop, procurement. But my heart always was drawn to the customer and sales and marketing side of the business. And that's where eventually, after years of working in the shop and running the shop, being shop foreman, and I moved into sales and marketing. And that's pretty much where my career continued from that point in time.
When you got out of college, you joined back up with your dad in the shop, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I graduated from college and went to work for my dad, and so at that point in time, we started our time together, and I worked with him for 11 years.
That must have been some good times working with him. I mean, maybe not all the time at the time, but you look back now, I'm sure there's a lot of good memories.
If we'd have wrote the book, we would have lived happily ever after.
Yeah. And this is in the Houston area?
That's correct.
Yeah. And you went to work for another shop, and at some point you got involved in acquisitions with a company, Best Access. Is that?
That's correct. Out of Indianapolis.
Why would you want to get out of the metalworking business and get into something so different?
Well, it was, it's a good question. It's one of those deals. I was not looking for a job. I had a friend of mine who was growing a company in Indianapolis, Best Access Systems, but they were actually had a big manufacturing plant. They had a 650-man shop making a door hardware for the electronic access and manual lock and door business. And so, whereas I didn't totally get away from manufacturing, but they needed someone to help in buying entrepreneurial-based businesses. And honestly, he just made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And we went up there, and what I went into was mergers and acquisitions, buying small to medium-sized, privately held companies. And what I didn't realize, the Lord works in mysterious ways. I didn't realize what I was learning would pay dividends for me just a few years later when I got back into manufacturing, being able to use that skill set of buying companies, how to create value in companies that I learned in that short tenure of my career. I was able to bring into the manufacturing side and help my next opportunity with buying companies and starting companies really around the globe. We had a couple international facilities that we started, and I really learned that expertise from that short tenure that I got out of the direct manufacturing industry.
So when you were looking at companies to buy, what were things that you saw that shops or operations didn't do well that made you shy away from them?
Really, I would say the big thing was a management team. How could their management team, was it set to grow? Did they have a management team that would stay? Um, where there, in a lot of cases, you would find that an owner had grown his business as far as he could grow it with his team, not necessarily just financially, just their capability of, they've grown it as far as they could. They've
Sure.
hit a ceiling and they don't know how to break through it. And so, our concern was always, did they have a management team that we could grow with? We did not have a big bullpen of people, in our own operation to go put in somewhere where you'd say, hey, we're gonna wipe out this management team and put a new team in. So we were very dependent on the management team that was in place. And so that was a key point to us, as well as what their company cultures were. I always say this, every company has their own DNA. And when you buy a company or go into a company, most likely you're never going to change their DNA. We all have the goal to change it for them to be like us, but every company has their own DNA, and it's almost impossible to change that. So you better know when you're connecting with someone, either way, on the buy-in or the sell-in, you better make sure that your DNA is really close together. And we call that culture sometimes, but it's really sometimes a little deeper than that.
That makes a lot of sense. And particularly, I would assume that these shops weren't always geographically located near the company who was acquiring.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right. We bought companies all over the U.S. and then and looked at international sites, and we wound up, instead of buying international sites, we actually started them from greenfield sites. For that reason, the culture was too different for us to try to buy an international company and change the culture or mesh with the culture.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they hear the term mergers and acquisitions, think of slash and burn, and there's going to be layoffs, and nothing's good going to come of it. But what I'm hearing is that the company you worked for wanted to grow, and you needed specialty skills, capacity, and with a management team that was topped out, that wasn't going to allow for it. You needed these companies to be successful and grow for the acquisition to be successful.
Jay, that's correct. And believe me, I've heard that comment a lot of times from people that we were acquiring, and and like I always told them, they had more reason not to believe me than they had to believe me that we needed their management teams in place, because I would say there's more examples of management teams getting wiped out and taken out and new people being put in their positions. But again, that wasn't our philosophy. Our philosophy was to buy and enhance companies, not buy and take over these companies. We wanted to give them the back office support, but the reality was we needed their expertise, their skill set, their connection with their customers, and we wanted to come in there and enhance them financially, best practices, those kind of things. And a lot of those things that we were trying to enhance were things that really NTMA helped support us with, frankly. The things we've learned through NTMA and working with our peers and talking to your peers who bought companies, who have, both the good, the bad, the ugly stories of buying companies.
Right.
Learning from those things were very helpful to me, having peers in NTMA that when I run into problems, I had places to go for some answers.
Could you share a little bit about the MIC group and jump into that a little more deeply, because that's such a success story. And I know that the NTMA and the skills that you learned there were part of that. Give us, as a listener, a little bit of the scope of the success there.
Jay, I went to work for MIC here in Texas, and we were owned by a gentleman that wanted to grow. And so that was the exciting thing about it, was he had the vision and the desire to grow. And he gave us the mantra to grow the business. And
what type of business?
It was in precision machining, in custom part manufacturing. And again, at that time, when I having come out of the acquisition business and having acquired some companies, it really gave me some great experience to go into a company to start growing the company. And again, we grew the company. When I went there, we did $22 million the first year. And in 7 years, we grew the company to 156 million. And we went from having 2 sites to having 5 sites. And
Wow.
that included a couple international sites. And again, what I learned through that was, and what I did was, when I first got there, I had them join NTMA, number one. When I got to MIT, they were not a member. And I said, we have to be a member of NTMA because this is where we can get so much support, knowledge, information, technology, introductions to tooling and automation. And I said, these are the guys that can help us the fastest way to get to that information. So we joined NTMA when we were 22 million, which is exciting. And to think that we used a lot of that information, a lot of that help and connections and networking to grow the company. But again, we were buying, privately held entrepreneurial-based businesses, mostly of guys who had grown the companies as far as they could grow them. In a couple cases, in one case, we had sort of a health-related issue needing to exit the company. And, one thing when you buy these companies, everybody worries more about their employees than they do themselves as the owner. And
Right.
They were really worried about these people who had committed so much of their time and effort for their success. And so most of them really worked to protect their employees. And, those were the kind of people we wanted to connect with because we were looking to protect their employees. We were looking for increased capacity. We needed the expertise. And so it was a good match between us and them, with our philosophy matching much of their philosophies.
Yeah.
And so, we really went on a really good run and had some great successes. I worked with a gentleman. He was really strong on the financial side. I was really strong on the sales and marketing side. And so when we worked together, we really were able to get the complete picture of a company. And I think because we were so opposite, that really grew to our success together. And we always laugh. We didn't need any two of one of us. We needed both of us.
Right.
And that was really what made us a strong team. And I look back at that, and that was one of the things I was really grateful for, was to have a teammate like that we could be a part of growing a company like that.
And in chatting with you again before the podcast, it seems that your vision for the NTMA is to be a team member for the member companies. And you got involved almost right away, didn't you, when you joined your dad's company full time?
Yeah, Jay, my dad would always tell you that he was a good machinist. He was not a good businessman when he started his business. He started it because he knew how to make parts. And he went to his grave telling you that it was NTMA that taught him how to run and grow a business. He said, I knew how to make parts, but I didn't know how to run a business. And he said, it was my NTMA, it being part of NTMA and my NTMA peers that helped me run a successful business and learn how to run a business. He said, I could make the parts, but they taught me that. So he joined in 1969. Then I went to work for my dad in 1979. And of course, I started in the shop. And within the first month, he come out to the shop and he said, okay, I need you to bring your nice clothes on Wednesday night of this week because I'm taking you to a meeting. And I'll never forget just how clear it is to me. We were on Wayside Drive going to the Helena Hotel in Houston, Texas. And on that way, he told me, he said, son, I'm going to introduce you to some people tonight that will teach you more about manufacturing and more about running the business than I'll ever be able to teach you. I'll never forget that because, you know what, that's held true for my entire career. What I've learned in manufacturing, the things I've experienced, the network of people I've connected with, what success I've had in my career, I owe a lot to those people who have been there along the way to help me. It's
also, though, what you make of it yourself. And you got involved locally on the board pretty quickly, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I joined in 1979. I was the chapter president in Houston in 1985. Went on to be on, multiple boards, and these were with my local competitors and peers in the Houston area. And then I got on.
Could you just talk about I know that myself way back, I had a fear that these guys were my competitors and I didn't want to open up and share because I might lose business.
Right.
But I learned over the years that's not true. How did you find the relationship with the other members?
No, part of NTMA's bylaws and code of ethics is that we respect each other's companies, we respect each other's customers, and we respect each other's employees.
Hmm.
And it's a commitment we make to each other, and realizing that together we're stronger than we are by ourselves. I can't tell you how many times we got into larger projects than we could do, and we were able to utilize our trusted industry partners who were our friendly competitors in being able to complete projects without worrying about them taking our customers or taking our people. And by being a part of the association, it was a commitment we all made that we would respect each other on that. And I'll give you an example. I had a company in Florida one time call me because my shop foreman had sent in a resume to their company, and they wanted to know if it was okay for them to interview them or not. They had enough respect for me from Florida to Texas to call me.
Wow.
And, and I appreciated that, which I gave them full blown access to that person, just appreciating the call. But that's the kind of respect and that we give each other as members of fellow members of NTMA. And so, it's something that I would say more people have gotten more work from each other than we've ever had problems with each other. And,
Well, with
35
$35 billion in revenue between all the shops, that's a lot of work to potentially trade back and forth with one another.
Yeah, and the idea that how many times do we as shop owners get opportunities that have one part of it that's not in our expertise, or is a little bigger than we can do, needs a bigger lathe than we have, or a bigger mill than we have, and it's just one operation, versus giving up that opportunity. We can take it and partner with industry partners, and really there's nobody better to partner with than people who have committed to the same code ethics you have, to respect each other's companies, customers, and employees.
How did you get involved in the national part of the NTMA?
Jay, I don't know where I made that mistake, but along the way, I met a lot of people. It was through networking and going. We have 2 to 3 events a year where we come together and network and have speakers and on technology and stuff. And I just met these people through the years. And
these are national events, right?
These are national events, and so you'd have anywhere from 200 to 300 of your peers come together for 3 to 4 days, and so I just developed a network of knowing the people, and lo and behold, got involved on the national level, and then all of a sudden you find yourself being asked, would you be willing to serve on the national board? So in 2009, I was asked to come on to the national board, which I did, and then lo and behold, in 2012, I served as chairman of the board of the association.
And that's not a full-time role, is it?
It's not
well, I mean, technically it's not.
It is definitely another job, but my day job, it's my day job. Then my night job's doing my real work. But
right.
It's a lot of time and energy. But it's put. The neat thing is, Jay, it's put back into the industry that we all serve. If we don't give back to the industry we serve, we will lose our industry. If we don't help our friendly competitors and small and medium-sized businesses, we'll be no more. My mantra is we're stronger together. And lo and behold, I would have never dreamed that I would sit here today and talk to you as president of NTMA.
Right.
It just, as I told somebody, is not in my wildest dream would have ever come up with this, but maybe if I would have ever had a wild dream, maybe it would have been president of NTMA. But lo and behold, I find myself serving that today, which is a great thrill, a great honor, and it's very humbling to be leading an association of your industry peers, of your lifelong industry peers.
Well, let me ask you, because you pretty much have lived in Houston all your life, maybe when the at Best Access you weren't there, but you, as part of taking this position, are moving to Ohio, and that's a huge change. So there's got to be something that's driving you, some vision that you want to implement and push the NTMA further. What was the some of the reasons that you said yes?
My wife's still asking me that question, but no, the reality is, Jay, when I bought these companies and I worked at some companies, I saw companies being ran by out-of-state presidents, and you see that a lot in mergers and acquisitions today.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody flies in on Monday, fly out on Friday, and I've seen it in my career. There's little to no commitment to the local community, really to the local employees. It's difficult to connect on that basis. And I made a commitment that if I was hired as president of NTMA, that I would not be a long distance president, that I would go to our national headquarters in Cleveland, Ohio, and work with our staff there on a daily basis to serve our 1,200 members across the United States. And so we would probably already be in Ohio today if it wasn't for the current pandemic that has, sort of
Right.
put our move on hold until we can, the travel restrictions get a little softened up or eased up. And so currently I'm working out of my Texas home and home office, and our staff in Cleveland is also working out of their homes in the Cleveland area.
Let's get into more of what the NTMA does, and I'm just going to open it up to you. There's so many different things that you could get lost in trying to describe the NTMA from the particular program or resource that it offers. But go ahead, just share everything that you think is important for a shop owner to know about the NTMA and what it offers to members.
Well, I would just start with, what my goal as president was, Jay, and coming aboard, and that is that NTMA will be the driver to lead lead our members through the disruptions of the industry. Mm-hmm. And, it's hard enough to run a business today on a daily basis and just watch what you're making and you're meeting your customers' demand, and then also dealing with the unplanned disruptions of industry. And so my goal for NTMA is that we will be the one that the big barge that goes out in front and busts through the waves of disruption of our industry while our members stay focused on their daily businesses. And, of course, that was a great plan, but, little did I realize 2.5 months into the job that we would hit the largest pandemic in our nation's,
right.
Has ever faced in recent years. And now we're dealing with just how do we survive the midst of immediately changing times, literally overnight. And so today, I would say one of the greatest values for NTMA members today is because we're putting out information, industry specific, manufacturing specific, small to medium size specific information to our members every day, by state, by local communities, informing them of what's going on in the government changes that are coming out daily. We're keeping our members updated on a daily basis. And as we all know, we're all getting inundated daily with emails about the virus, and which ones you read, which ones you don't read. And I can tell I can look an NTMA member in the face, or any small to medium sized precision manufacturer, and say, you can come here to this website for vetted out information specifically directed at your business. But I would say, right now that's a tremendous value. And, but, we have, like I told you, we have 2 to 3 national meetings every year. And, regardless of the speakers, regardless of the technology that we bring in, and cybersecurity and the different issues we all face on a daily basis. The interesting point is, in every survey, after every meeting we do, the number one valued part of that meeting is networking with my industry peers.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get a speaker or a subject matter that outpaces the fact that people value being with your networking with your industry peers. And as I always say, when you run a small to medium sized, precision manufacturing company, when you want to talk shop, it's really hard to find somebody you can talk shop with. I don't care if it's your brother, your next door neighbor, or your
Right.
best friend. It's hard if they don't understand the precision manufacturing world that we all serve. It's hard for them to even have a conversation with you, or for you to be able to go to them for advice and share your problems, and for them to understand it. And so I think that's why networking goes to the top of the list. You can come for 3 to 4 days, and everybody there can shop talk with you. They can talk with your problem.
Mm-hmm.
As I share with people, there's no problem that hasn't been solved already. There's no challenge that somebody hasn't already dealt with. And if you'll
Mm-hmm.
just share what your problems are, you're going to go home with answers instead of going it alone. You're trying to figure all these things out over time. In most cases here, I would say, and if it's not at a meeting, you can pick up members from around the United States and ask them questions.
That is so important because we tend to get myopic if we never travel out of our region. And I have been able to travel all over the country, and in New England, there's not a lot of room for new construction, but I'm down in Texas and I'm just blown away with what's going on. Same thing if I'm in Florida and some of the other parts of the country. It's important because beyond your own region, there's different mindsets, there's different ways of doing businesses. For example, East Coast shows, for whatever reason, are a lot less women and minorities at the shows than if you go to LA. And I had the pleasure of being at a chapter leadership summit in Orlando in January where we got a chance to meet. And I was really happy to see the number of women who were participating at the national level, and everyone knew each other. There were so many conversations. I felt like an outsider, but by the time I left, I had some really good conversations and gotten to know a couple folks really well. And I could see that over time, you make the commitment, that's really going to extend. Some other things that we definitely want to cover on the national level, but just jumping into the local chapters, because that's where the meetings start, where you develop the friendships and rapport locally. How often typically do the local chapters meet?
Jay, that it's really chapter dependent. Some of them meet monthly, maybe taking off, a month in the summer and maybe, around the holiday. And then some of them meet every other month. Some will meet quarterly. And so it's really chapter specific, but a chapter will range anywhere from 15 to probably 50 companies in the local area that people can drive to. Their meetings tend to be, many chasms of what a larger event would be. Somebody who bring a speaker in that would be industry specific on a a topic. Normally, have a dinner, some kind of dinner or breakfast meal or lunch
Shop
meal,
tours?
and then have a speaker.
Are shop tours part of the meeting sometimes?
Occasionally they are. Sometime a chapter meeting may be meeting at someone's shop and somebody opening their shop and having the dinner at a shop and touring somebody's shop. That happens on a regular basis as well. On the national level, when we have our national meetings, we had one recently in Cleveland. We went and visited 2 different shops in the Cleveland area while we were there. And these are men and women that completely open their companies and let us walk through and tour their entire facility, covering nothing up that we wouldn't see. And, trusting, again, you're trusting your industry peers, letting them in, more or less letting them into your house and touring your home.
I remember at Rapid, we typically would have an open house once a year in the summertime. And it truly was an open house. Our competitors thought that they had to be sneaky in coming in, and we actually welcomed them because we knew that we would be stronger as a group if they learned and they excelled, because, face it, team members move from company to company, and there's people who are working at other shops are going to come to my shop and vice versa. So it also, I thought, was a good way to push myself and my team, in that, let's say they were going to copy everything that they saw in our shop, which of course they're not going to, and even they don't understand. But even if they did, it forced a way of thinking that we have to be better. So by the time somebody would implement what we're doing, we would be so far ahead that it wouldn't matter. And I really like that mentality.
Yeah, Jay, I would say I always told shops this, that whatever you have in your shop or one person has in their shop, somebody with enough money could go duplicate every machine, every part of your company, and start it right across the street. So what separates us from our competitors? It's our people that separate us from our competitors. It's not our equipment in some cases, but again, people could duplicate your equipment, but they can't. But what our competitive advantage, well, both with each other and internationally, is our people.
I totally agree. Back to the NTMA at a national level, you offer so many ways to support the members in programs and resources. What are some of the ones that perhaps you have used, or your favorites that are out there?
Jay, we have what we call national associate members, and that's a key portion of us. These are big machine tool dealers. These are the big tooling people. We're on first name basis with these people. I mean, where they come to our meetings, and a small, medium-sized business is on the first name basis with the president of a major machine tool dealer in the United States. Where are you going to get access to things like that? We obviously, we were talking about NTMA being founded. NTMA was founded almost 80 years ago around workforce development, and that's what brought these men during that day together, was the need for a trained workforce. You'd think we would have outgrown that, but here today we find ourselves in the same scenario that they started NTMA about. So we're heavily focused on a trained workforce. We have online training, especially right now where we're seeing schools and trade centers that can't go to school, the ability to do training online. We have training, we have exposure down into the high school and junior high level with what we call the NRL, which is the National Robotic League. It allows students to put together battling robots. Our industry partners like Mastercam and SolidWorks give these schools free seats of their software to be able to design their robots, assemble their robots, and then we give them opportunities to compete, high schools against each other. You talk about red and yellow, black and white. There's every color kid. There's every gender kid at these events, and it's so cool to watch these young people work together as a team. And bringing that environment into a shop, if somebody brings a team environment, the hands-on environment, you can teach them the rest. But if they don't have those skill sets, it's hard to take them. But I've gone to these events, and without even interviewing half these kids, I would tell you I would take them in my shop today, just because of their work ethic on working on a robot and working with a team, and everybody knowing their job and everybody doing their job. You'd think the teams would fight over who's going to control the joystick for the robot. That's actually the last thing they fight about. Everybody knows their job, and so it's pretty exciting. So those are things we do to try to draw younger people into the industry, and we're really convincing parents. We're really not convincing kids. It's that a parent would be proud of their son and daughter for going into a manufacturing career whether that be from a machinist to a designer to an engineer to whatever role within manufacturing. And the networking obviously is key with your peers. And then, we have an advocacy piece. Sometimes that's the last thing you really want to be a part of is advocating. But I am so thankful today in the midst of of this crisis we're in, we have somebody advocating for small to medium-sized businesses on stimulus bills that get down to help us at this level of business. And we've really had our team in Washington, D.C. has truly had an influence on getting the support for small to medium-sized manufacturers across the United States.
How do you do that in D.C.? I think that you have partnered with the Precision Metal Forming Association, and you have a organization, One Voice.
Yeah, we both we have we work with Franklin Partnership out of Washington and Bracewell Policy Resolution Group, and they represent in us Washington, and they represent small to medium-sized manufacturers. So
okay.
What NTMA did is we joined with PMA, which is the Precision Metal Forming Association, and we joined our forces and used the same people because we're advocating for the same support. We're advocating for small to medium-sized businesses, and so together we've created a team that's called One Voice. And then all of a sudden, due to this crisis, overnight we created a One Voice info.org website, and this is a website that was created strictly to give daily updated information on the coronavirus as related to small to medium-sized businesses, and that's updated in some cases multiple times a day, but at least one time daily.
That's a super way as an owner to, as you said before, not have to be looking at all the emails coming in, all the websites. The NTMA is filtering it for you.
Right. It is overwhelming. It's just overwhelming the amount of information, with all the best intent coming to you, but to have a one place to go for information that affects your business, specifically designed for your business, to me is priceless. And they're sort of an unsung hero most of the time, our advocacy arm is, but I tell you today, I am so grateful for their expertise in helping us, forge through this major disruption to our companies and our industry.
And they're making sure that the small and medium-sized businesses beyond metalworking are getting heard in the administration and in Congress as they're crafting the legislation to support us. We want to make sure it's not just all for the large companies.
And in many cases, we have the Wall Street Journal, we have the Washington Post, we have a bunch of different national publications that are coming to NTMA for interviews with small to medium-sized businesses to interview what's really going on in the small to medium-sized businesses. We just had 2 interviews, one yesterday and one today, with some of our small members on the SBA loan program that's just been rolled out.
Right.
We've had some about workforce development, getting the need for a workforce. We had an 18-man shop in Colorado Springs that was written up in the Wall Street Journal because he needed people. I called and followed up with him and asked him how it went, and he said, it's interesting. He said, we got written up, and he said, I got 2 unsolicited resumes from that article in the Wall Street on my 18-person company here in Colorado Springs. And so we do, little small to medium-sized shops are getting national exposure, and not so much the national exposure, but getting our message out to the nation of the important role and the importance of support for the small to medium-sized business. And again, to me, the value of being a part of NTMA, because if you're a small to medium-sized manufacturer and you're going it alone today, you're not getting that exposure. You're having to look for the disruptions all the while running your business. I want NTMA to be the association you can be a part of that takes care of the disruptions or leads you through the disruptions, and you run your business. It's hard enough to run a business today just with the daily challenge, the normal daily challenges. much less trying to run it with national challenges that we're facing today.
So thinking of the slowdown and the shelter in place, the social distancing, some shops being classified essential, others perhaps not. How have you seen shops handle social distancing and working at home in particular? Do you think we're well equipped to do that?
Well, I think we've learned quickly, Jay. I don't think anybody would say they were prepared for it. I don't think anybody said they would have even given it a thought a month ago. But I would say that, I'm making just an offhand comment, but I would say the majority of our members have been deemed essential businesses and are serving some critical part of our nation's products. And so I would say the majority of our members have meet that essential business threshold and are opening. I know people are now much more they've rotated shifts to keep so many people from being in at one time. They're being more specific about where distance between machines.
Right.
Maybe we won't run this machine on this shift, but we'll run it on the next shift. So there's a lot of social distancing being done, within the shop. Cleaning, obviously, and wiping down has become essential in our companies. And I'm really, as an owner, sometimes as a stockholder, you don't realize it all, but when you're an owner of a small business, that, as I said earlier, that's your home.
Right.
And it's imperative that you do everything you can to protect your employees. And so, from a safety factor, I think our members are putting every safety factor they can within their businesses, first for their people and second for their business. And so I think people have responded very quickly and very sensibly to trying to deal with the exceptions or the challenges that have been faced under the restrictions and guidelines, and which have been fantastic guidelines. There's no doubt that some of the guidelines put in place have really are helping in this situation of the virus spread. And so I think our members are doing a great job. And we talk to them. We talk to them daily. We send them updates daily, and it's so nice to get somebody said, "Man, thanks so much for this information. This is so helpful to me." It's somebody that's already vetted it out, and they don't have to spend time reading something they really know little to nothing about.
This relates to all shops in general, but do you think the slowness to adopt modern software tools, such as the software as a service cloud-based tools, has handicapped some shops? And I ask that in the context of what I'm hearing is that some team members just don't want to come in to work, and particularly folks who are not running machines who could be working from home. And also that there are team members who don't even have a computer at home, even if they wanted to work from home.
Yeah.
What do we need to do as manufacturers to think about that? Is that a mindset shift that we have to start making?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a a generational mindset, Jay, in manufacturing, for small to medium-sized businesses. And so, I would first go to your deal. When I talked about social distancing, I know for a fact that a lot of people on non-essential people within their companies are allowing them to work at home and are allowing them not to come to work. Trying to respect really who's essential and what equipment's essential within their business. So I think people are doing their best to respect those kind of restrictions within their own companies. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to have learned a lot through this. I think we're going to have learned a lot about the value of automation. I think we're going to find out a lot about, higher level technologies within our companies. And I think that's going to include software. I think it's going to include AI. How does a small to medium sized business get Industry 4.0 into their businesses?
Mhm.
How are you going to start adopting it? Because reality is you could probably run a lot of businesses without adopting any of these things in yesterday's world. But the interesting part to me is when this is sort of died down and we go, what is the new normal going to look like? And I believe there is going to be a new normal of what just daily life is to some degree. And I think in our businesses, we got to look at what is the new normal within our businesses. And it may be, I think, the degree of automation, lights out manufacturing, software is going to play a huge role into preparing people for the future
Well,
challenges that, unplanned challenges like we face today.
I was mulling over this because Rapid was very highly automated. We had a lot of software. I had 6 software developers on staff, as well as another half dozen IT folks, different from the software developers. And thinking about it, we weren't set up to allow a lot of people to run from home. We did not have cloud-based tools. And I think about there's so many different programs out there today touching different aspects of your business that a Chrome laptop for several $100s, well, here's some examples. Microsoft Office 365, almost everybody uses Word and Excel and the other programs. That can all be done on the web, and you can access it at work and you can access it at home from different computers. You don't have to worry that it's on your hard drive at work and you can't get it anymore. The financial software, QuickBooks, there's an online version. I'm not really fond of that. I don't think it works real well, but there's a company called Right Networks where you just log in and you can run your desktop version of QuickBooks, and it's just like you're running it on your computer at work, and you can run it that way at work or at home again. And CAD and CAM, SolidWorks hasn't moved to being online yet, but there are other CAD software programs out there. Autodesk has a product. There's Onshape that was just bought by PTC. And I'm actually hearing on the CAM side, I love Mastercam, but Fusion 360 from Autodesk is getting traction because it's cloud-based. And I will throw the caveat out that I am a co-founder of Paperless Parts and therefore not disinterested in this, but we specifically have developed estimating software that runs on the cloud. And one of our first customers was so happy because he was quoting on vacation away from the shop. He hadn't taken a vacation, I think, in over 10 years. And we've also created some communication tools that are centered around 3D geometry. So someone could be at home and someone in the shop could have a question, highlight some information on the 3D geometry, and you don't lose any time. So all these cloud-based tools, I would be really rethinking how the basic functions of Rapid worked right now if I was still own that. There's so many opportunities, and I probably wouldn't have needed as many IT people. So.
I do think what you bring up is critical, Jay, and I just think it's a change of the norm. How we've always done it. It's always been done this way mentality. The norm of how to run a business. How do you run a business? Everybody comes to work every day. We all have an office. I just believe today that the new education is going to be educating how do we work in a different environment. How do we work from home? How do we allow, how do we allow software to enhance us? Which I think is really going to be the key. And I think this probably does disrupt some folks is the cyber side of that comes with a lot of the, online stuff, which cyber is becoming, a greater and greater threat to, so much is being put online, even talking about Zoom meetings, that the new cyber attack is on Zoom because they know so many people are being driven to virtual meetings, and Zoom being one of the big users of virtual meeting access. So I do think, we're going to see that go hand in hand as we enhance the software and the online capabilities. I think we're going to see also the development of greater cyber security and being able to do that. And, even our government, when you're working on government, related things, there's more and more restrictions being placed on companies, even on small businesses. And this is where it makes it, really crippling on a small business to have to implement such onerous type cybersecurity protection when you're a small business. Those kind of expenses can almost prohibit you from dealing in certain markets.
And if the program runs on the cloud and the data is stored on the cloud, that is taken care of for you. And it just makes me think of, even beyond the cybersecurity of people stealing information, there are so many examples of companies paying a ransom because their computers are locked out. Again, if you have your data, the bulk of it running on the cloud, then it's not as critical for you. And it still sucks, but but it may not bring you to your knees where you have to. And they'll charge $50,000, $100,000. There's even local governments who are having to pay ransoms. So I think that one of the opportunities on the flip side is that this perhaps gives shops some bandwidth, some extra time to think about how they can improve their processes beyond the software and the technology. I'm sure almost everyone out there has some projects that you need a chunk of time to think about, or some machine time to experiment with. And instead of bemoaning the fact that you're not making revenue, which of course is not what you want, but okay, is there something you can be doing with your time, with your folks' time, if you have them on board, your time, to make your company function more efficiently in the months and years to come? What do you think about that? What would you say are some low-hanging fruit?
Well, Jay, I'm right with you on that. I've sort of looked at it. That's back where I go back to let NTMA deal with the disruptions, and you run your business. I want to be dealing with this, with all this information on Corona. We're gonna get it down where it's readable to you while you run your business. And I do. I actually just wrote an article on about this gives us a chance to look at our businesses. How do we, again, for some it's automation, some it's higher technology, it's for some it's online, and I think you're right. If we can just give people an opportunity not to have to spend all their time dealing with this crisis, deal with the crisis of your company, and let us, from a larger, collective level, work on the bigger pieces. But yeah, I think you're right. I think people, because if this thing, when this thing subsides and we get back to some semblance of normal in our daily lives, in our daily businesses, I think we would all say we all feel somewhat confident that the economy could rebound relatively quickly. Or over time, it's going to rebound, considering we were at one of the strongest economic times when this thing hit. And then I think also the thing that I think about daily is the idea that I think we're going to see a rush of reshoring products back to the United States. And Harry Moser, the head of Reshoring Initiative, I've talked to Harry. I think we're going to see more and more of that coming. I think we as American U.S. manufacturers need to prepare ourselves for a potential onslaught of reshoring parts and products coming back to the United States. And as such, we have to be as prepared with efficiencies and productivity to be competitive as we can be. And now is that time to make sure that you are positioned to be as competitive as possible to bring this product back to the United States. And, I go back to the reshoring initiative. They have a total cost of a total ownership cost formula to show you what the cost is from bringing something offshore to bringing it to the U.S. when you put in all the other associated costs with it. But I believe the U.S., number one, we have to be competitive to hope that it comes back. But I think now is the time to be positioning our companies, efficiency, productivity, lights out, additive manufacturing, things that the newest and highest technology to be prepared for people. We all want it to come back to the United States. We all have given, there's a good reason and a good argument to bring products back, a lot of products back to the United States. We, on the manufacturing side, we manufacturers, and again, the medium to small manufacturers are the backbone of U.S. manufacturing. We have to be prepared. If that day is to come, we have to be prepared for it to come into our shops. And that's going to be us to be prepared to be as competitive and efficient and productive as possible.
I totally agree with you, Roger. And I think we have to make it as easy as possible for the product manufacturers. And a big part of that is cost. So we have to do the things that you were just talking about. I just put a blog out on LinkedIn, and I came across a term called economic distancing recently, and it really resonated with me. The core of it is that China, we know from a variety of ways, intellectual property and other ways that they have manipulated pricing through government subsidies, has not been a fair trading partner, but they've created, in my mind, a loss of faith with the American people in not being forthcoming on this virus. And if you look back at the SARS one as well, and particularly what a lot of American corporations have found out is that their supply chain is very opaque and they don't have control over it. Things that they thought were in place were completely disrupted when China shut down. So it economically is going to make a lot of sense for corporations to do more manufacturing locally. And we were starting to already see this, but this is, I think, going to create a rush of business for NTMA members, custom part manufacturers, manufacturing in general. So in the short term, this is painful. There may be disruptions in cash flow, but in the medium to long term, we as an industry really want to be prepared for what I see is a lot of business coming our way.
Well, I agree with you. I'm quite familiar with your LinkedIn post, and if you'll go check, I was probably your first comment on your LinkedIn post. So,
all right, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I think you're right. I think we have to be prepared. We have to use our time wisely and be prepared.
This is an opportunity. You can go home and watch Netflix, but maybe stay in the shop a little bit longer and really work through that problem. I'm going to give a plug. One of my favorite podcast guests was Central Screw Products out in Michigan, and they are making basic parts for the heavy truck industry. And the two brothers who run the company were actually sourcing parts in China, and they decided once they got married and had kids, they didn't want to live in China, and they figured out how to do it in Michigan and be cost competitive. And they're doing some really, really cool stuff. They have some case studies on their website as well. The ingenuity that they have, it's not unique. There's so many of us out there who, if we put our minds to it, can figure out different ways to do things and be more efficient, be more cost competitive.
Yeah, I agree with you. We have several NTMA members across the country that have done that and have become competitive internationally, and their operations are just phenomenal operations. At one of the conferences of NTMA, I think the kind of people we're going to look for in the future are going to be more engineering related. We're going to have engineering type machinists, where
Yes.
before they were machinists. Now I think they're going to be more engineering related machinists is what we're going to see in our businesses for the future workforce and what we're doing. So, I think one thing we did, Jay, I didn't mention that we NTMA spearheaded a letter with other manufacturing trade associations, and it was called an open letter to CEOs, and it was really touting that U.S. manufacturing has always stepped up in time of crisis for our country, whether it be war or what, and we again were ready to step up in a time of crisis to disrupted supply chains, et cetera. And we, as about 5 associations, joined together and said, we associations representing a huge number of manufacturers in the U.S. are ready to step up. And it was sent to OEMs across the nation, to some of our political leaders, stating that we're here. Some of the crisis that we face today, I think one of the challenges is much of what our government needs in the midst of this pandemic that we're in today. They need finished product. Ideas of a ventilator, a product of a finish this or a finish this. What we manufacturers are is we're piece part manufacturers for the most part, and we make things to print. We can make a ventilator. We just would put all the pieces. We would make all the pieces for somebody to put together a ventilator. Now we also have members that do assembly, but we're not, in most cases, not designers. And so little the disconnect to me with the government and U.S. manufacturers is today is that all their surveys are about what finished product can you provide, and what is the SKU number of that product that you provide versus, so there's a real sort of disconnect. So what this is forcing is it forces an NTMA type member to have to go to OEMs as a supplier to OEMs to be able to make piece parts that would support some of the things needed in the current medical area of the pandemic today. So it's been very frustrating for many of our members who are ready to step up to find that avenue, how they connect into the supply chain. And it's not going to be at the government level. It's got to be at the OEM level of those that have committed to making some of these products that we can actually, use our machining and capabilities to make.
So true. Well, Roger, this has been a real pleasure. I am so grateful American manufacturers have you and the strong leadership skills you're bringing, the background that you have. The NTMA advocating for us in Washington right now is a big part of that. You gathering the information and filtering it and pushing it back, the right information out to us shop owners. Community is so important, and really do think the NTMA is doing a important job in bringing shop owners together. Before we go, please give me again the soundbite of who the NTMA is.
Jay, I really have appreciated our time together as well, and I'm proud to represent NTMA. I'm proud to represent 1,200 U.S. manufacturers across the country. But again, what I would share people, if they're a privately held, entrepreneurial-based, family-owned business in the precision machining sector of the manufacturing industry, they need to be a part of NTMA. We are stronger together. And again, networking with your industry peers, getting industry-specific information is invaluable to running your businesses. And I believe it's only going to become more valuable as we move forward. Some could, it's always questionable to question our value of being a part of a community. I think today that question should go away, the value of being a part of community to survive. And so I would just encourage anybody that's in that, if that describes your company, entrepreneurial, small business, privately held, family business. Don't go. What my advice is, don't go it alone. Don't go it alone.
Totally agree.
And let's go together. And you've been at a couple of my events, and my motto to NTMA members, because I am one. I was a member a lot longer than I've been president of this association, but I'm a lifelong member of a network of peers. And as I tell them today, it's us, it's we, it's together, it's team, and it's the future. That's what I'd leave you with today, Jay. And I so much appreciate you allowing me to be a part of your program.
Well said, Roger. Where can people find the NTMA on the internet?
It's ntma.org.
It's that simple.
NTMA.org. And I would also encourage people to go to, in the midst of the coronavirus, I would encourage people to go to onevoiceinfo.org. And that will be the latest up-to-date industry-specific information by state, by daily, restrictions and outlays on SBA loans, the stay-at-home orders, essential business facts. These are the facts that will affect small to medium-sized manufacturers. So I would encourage them to go to that website as well. And if you don't mind, I'll give my personal email address. I'd be happy
Sure.
for anybody to
Please do.
want to contact me. It's ratkins, ATKINS @ntma.org. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody, help anybody in any way we can, because today I will tell you, it is about NTMA, but it's really about our industry. And to me, our arms are open wide for our industry today. And it's not all about our association. It's about the industry. And I'm here to represent the industry. And if I can help people in any way, please contact us.
I will put in my pitch. If you own a machining center, I really encourage you to check out the NTMA. As Roger said, the NTMA is you. It is a bunch of friendly, for the most part, shop owners who can support you in so many ways. My company, Rapid, didn't really start growing until I got involved in organizations and started learning from my peers and the experiences of others. Great conversation, Roger. Thanks again for your time. And for the listener, I hope those spindles are turning, those lasers are cutting. Stay strong. We're going to get through this, and we're going to be even stronger on the other side. Have a super day.